it's what, 63 years ago? 63 years. I went to Studley Horticultural College from 1954 to 56. And I then got a job at a firm who did window boxes in London and also did a bit of contract gardening for Cecil Beaton and some fairly prominent people. I would have liked to have gone into private gardening. I fancied myself in a nice country house doing herbaceous borders. I did go for an interview somewhere and turned it down because bits more were creeping in, you know. Well, you wouldn't mind doing the odd bit of cooking, looking after the children, doing a bit of laundry. And I thought, unpaid au pair, no, definitely not. There was an advert in one of the London evening papers for a gardener in Regent's Park. And as we lived in St John's Wood, I thought, this is great. So I applied. And I started, I think, on the 10th of December in 1956. I think I probably did. It's a long time ago, so I think possibly, yes. I turned up the one solitary female with all these men. Well, I can remember there was this room which, of course, I was in on my own. And if I remember rightly, it had a hatch, and the men's canteen was the other side of the hatch. And so the hatch would lift up, and my breakfast was passed through by the cooks. But I can't remember any problems at all. No problems at all. Not as far as I can remember. Lots and lots of begonias. The glass house work was obviously mainly sort of propagating begonias and more begonias. Very, very tiny. And we had to prick them out. We had a little forked stick because the plants were only about that big. We had to take out of the seed boxes and then pot them all up. So lots of begonias, geraniums, cuttings, root cuttings, dahlias, sort of mainly on the propagation side. And then, of course, they were potted up, grown on, and then, of course, they all went outside. So the outside work was a lot of deadheading, especially in the rose garden, which was basically never ending. And the rockery. I loved the rockery. My favourite place was the rockery. Walked over the little bridge, you were there, this little island in the middle with water out, little stream going round the outside, and you were there just all day, weeding and planting, and lovely, lovely. I would have been happy spending all my days on the rockery. But obviously there were other things to do. Well, we started obviously quite early in the morning. I'm not quite sure what time the park gates opened, but there was one elegantly dressed, tall man who used to walk through every morning, obviously at the same time, and we nicknamed him the dentist. And then there was this chap who would always try and seek me out, and he became a bit of a worry at one time, and so I, because it was a bit persistent, and so if there was a colleague working nearby, I'd either give a sign when I saw this chap coming, and if there was any trouble, I said, well, I'll either wave to you but I mean, there was never any trouble. He did get a bit persistent, but I think that he is the person that, before I left, wrote me a poem, which I still have framed, hanging on the wall. And then there were nannies with their children, and quite a few people used to ask you questions, and, what do I do with this and what do I do with that? There was another Joe who lived in Hampstead, and then there was Hope. I can't remember much about Hope's history, but at one time I cycled to work, and the chap who I cycled with was called Rex. Hope obviously suddenly became friendly with Rex, and eventually they got married, which was lovely. Then there was Jenny. And that was an extraordinary coincidence, because when Jenny arrived, it transpired that we had both been at school together. Then there was Joan. Joan came having done a degree from Reading University. And then there was Peggy. Looking at old diaries, Peggy and I seem, as far as I can make out, did quite a bit of work together, certainly in the initial stages in the glass house. Peggy seemed even then to be considerably older than some of us, but she was good fun. Oh, and then there was the head of the sort of gardening department, our sort of immediate supervisor, was a chap called Jim Smith, tall, dark hair with glasses. And he had a young, I don't know whether he was a trainee or apprentice or what, called Jimmy. And young Jimmy, I think we all fancied young Jimmy. I think we all fancied him, yes. With great pleasure, yeah. As I say, we were a small band of women, and we basically got on extremely well together. Perhaps the odd disagreements occasionally. We tended to have discussions. The other Joe was a bit of a psychologist, as far as I can remember, and we'd get into sort of fairly lengthy discussions on how one should bring up children, or, but basically we got on very well. If you're interested in gardening and that, no, have a go. Just have a go and find somewhere, get some qualifications and have a lovely life.